Pompeii, buried by Mount Vesuvius. This city was frozen in time, providing us with a shocking window into the lost world of the Romans. But that window may close before all her secrets are revealed, as Pompeii comes under threat from all sides. Today, the greatest mystery may be, is the same force that conquered Pompeii the first time rumbling back to life?
We're all really worried that we'll actually be here the next time it erupts.
These walls, they were never meant to withstand all that they've been through. The threats are very real.
Now, experts are trying to solve the lingering riddles before it's too late, as they fan out across the site and use the latest technology and scientific detective work to uncover what Pompeii was like on the eve of its destruction.
We want to know who were these people and how were the last moments of their lives.
It's the year 79 AD. The people in the Roman town of Pompeii are going about their business. Shoppers out in the streets pick up their daily supplies. At home, people prepare for their day ahead. Slaves work away in the city's food industry. The bars are noisy and bustling, and gladiators are preparing for battle. But this day would change these people's lives forever. High above the city looms Mount Vesuvius, one of the most dangerous volcanoes on Earth. Few realize that for many of them, they have just one day left to live. A glowing cloud of volcanic gas and debris begins to roll down the slopes of Mount Vesuvius.
Smoke, ash, debris started to fall on Pompeii. They probably had no idea exactly what was happening. As the day progressed, more and more debris fell, and so this blocked doorways, walls collapsed, roofs collapsed, and so people got stuck in their homes, died that way. There were 6 surges of hot gas that flowed down and instantly killed with the heat whoever was left.
It took just 18 hours for Pompeii to be buried under millions of tons of volcanic ash and pumice. An entire living city wiped out, thousands of its people buried alive. The superheated air burns their lungs and melts their muscles. Their twisted and contorted bodies were quickly buried in ash. When they finally decomposed, their bodies left voids in the ground.
After the decomposition of the body, when the internal organs disappear, they keep this empty space, they form just still the bones, because the bones are very resistant to the decomposition.
Long ago, archaeologists realized that if they filled these voids with plaster, the body's shapes could be revealed. The casts they made have captivated the world.
Pompeii is unique in showing the emotions of people in their death throes and giving us a real human element that we don't get anywhere else. And I think that's what makes people fascinated by Pompeii. And we see them right in the context of their living spaces as they're hiding, or they're trying to leave, or they're rescuing their children.
But many mysteries remain about exactly how these people died. A team of scientists is now studying 15 bodies that were found together in the east of the city. The odd positions these bodies were found in intrigues team leader Lawrence Alapon.
It's very interesting how they found the bodies, because we find several groups together, 3 people together, 4 people together. It seems that they died, maybe helping each other. And we want to know what's happened exactly with these people.
So who were they, and what were their final moments like? Using the latest in high technology, science may finally be on the cusp of solving this 2,000-year-old puzzle. To do so, they're scanning the casts in more detail than ever before, taking high-resolution photographs and then X-rays of their bones locked inside.
We can see the teeth. We know the teeth. We can see about the diet. We can know the sex because we can see very well the morphology of the pelvis. We can know the age because for the growing of the bone.
One cast is particularly well preserved. Lawrence has already unlocked personal details of this man's life.
We know that he was between 25, 30 years old.
This young man also had a military sword, which leads Lawrence to think he was a soldier. But he's hoping to find out much more. He's taking the data back to his lab in Valencia, Spain, to try to put a face to him.
We want to know the last moment of this person, if he suffered or he was afraid, and all this we can see in this face.
The well-preserved sections of the cast are copied and then filled into other sections that are less detailed.
In this part, we can see the complete side of the cast. So we have to take the complete part for make what part is not complete or is missing. The nose is not completely at the end, but we have the width of the nose. So with this reference, we can know how long and which form was the nose. So we use what we have for complete what we have not.
The result is an image that is moving and strikingly lifelike of the young soldier who was buried 2,000 years ago.
When we see the face, we understand a lot of things immediately. The nose, the mouth, everything was people that from the south of Italy or the north of Africa. You give the human aspect, you will feel like that you are living the last moments of these people.
Lawrence has figured out what the man looked like, his occupation and age. But unfortunately, the bigger mysteries remain. What were his and the other victims' final moments like? What was Pompeii really like on the day it was covered in ash? Since it can't be solved here, it falls to other scientists documenting the site. But they're aware that time is running out.
Wind and rain, 3 million people annually who come through Pompeii. These are the things that chip away at the site.
Part of the threat is the numbers of people here, the record numbers that we get into Pompeii, the constant leaning up against walls and scraping against walls, people picking things off. All these issues serve as a very real threat to the preservation of Pompeii.
Centuries of exposure to the elements mean that this city is also coming under threat from potential landslides. One major landslide could bury the delicate buildings of Pompeii before all her secrets are revealed.
These walls, they were never meant to withstand all that they've been through. So we need to find new ways and new ideas for preserving those architectures. They will fall down.
But the deadliest danger still waits on the horizon.
The threat of Mount Vesuvius is a very real threat. Although we stand here in the shadow of the mountain trying to figure out what happened on that day, we're all really worried that we'll actually be here the next time it erupts.
Vesuvius has been described as being one of the most dangerous volcanoes on Earth. Because of the large population in the immediate vicinity of the volcano, there's a very high chance of severe destruction and, of course, high numbers of casualties.
In the wake of these new threats, scientists are now embarking on an ambitious plan to create the first ever 3D model of Pompeii. All its major buildings, monuments, and homes, to create a virtual copy of the city that will last forever. This monumental task is being carried out by architect Raffaele Martinelli and his team. They're documenting over 2,000 buildings and miles of intricate roads, from the ancient Forum in the west to lavish villas in the north, and the magnificent amphitheater in the east of the city.
Il modello 3D è importante.
The 3D model is important as it allows us to see the location and current situation as it is now. It's the first time that such an extended and complete digitalization of the whole site has been created. Raphael's goal is to document every inch of this 66-hectare site and help answer unsolved mysteries, from how the Romans lived and interacted to what different areas of the city can tell us about their final hours. We can compare what we are finding, and it helps us see the changes in the buildings over time. And it allows us to plan new repairs to the buildings we're working on and help in their preservation and maintenance. Raphael and his team begin by using a state-of-the-art, high-resolution laser scanner. This machine measures a lot more than 1 million individual points in a second. It means we get very detailed information of the buildings we are scanning. Today, they're mapping the thermal baths in a building on the southern edge of the city called the House of Menander. It's one of the richest houses in all of Pompeii. Today, we are working in the bathroom area. As they scan, surprising new details come to life. Details long hidden from casual view. The team is surprised to discover how comfy a 2,000-year-old bathroom could be, if you had the money. This house has its own small thermal bath. And although it's ordinary for us, this house had hot running water. Once the data is loaded onto their high-powered computers, Raphael can manipulate any of the buildings and monuments that they've scanned. We are getting data about every single wall in the city and eventually the whole site. By combining the work of the scanner and the computer program, the data then gives us a lifelike 3D model. Then we add a color layer, which is taken from photographs of the buildings. Ultimately, Raphael and his team will provide a complete 3D model of the city as it is today, before further damage is done. It means future generations will be able to use this as a starting point to see what Pompeii might have looked like in the 1st century. From the lavish villas to the corner bars, from the amphitheater to the magnificent forum. Of course, none of this would be possible without the huge leaps in technology in recent years. It's revolutionizing the work in the field for Pompeii's scientists and archaeologists.
Well, one way that technology is really helping us to understand the city as archaeologists is through having tools like tablet computers. So, for example, the iPad. In the past, we would come and be reliant upon notepads and pencils and having to take all that paper-based work back to the home institutions to then be digitized and processed and thought about. The advent of tablet technology and also the cloud has helped us to bring those computer databases, bring all of that wealth of information that was typically confined to our offices and our libraries and our museums, and bring it to the trench side. So we're now able to excavate trenches here with our hands on the technology, which not only helps us to record in completely different ways, but also to be able to access that information as well. So it has wholly revolutionized the way we study the past.
But state-of-the-art technology is not only helping the work of the scientists at Pompeii. In some cases, it's even challenging their preconceptions. The Quadriporticus in the south of the city. This sprawling building has long been thought of as a gladiator barracks, and that's still what many tourists are told when they visit Pompeii. Professor Eric Paler from the University of Massachusetts has been working this site for almost 20 years. For some time, he's had his doubts about the real use of the Quadriporticus.
Over our 4 years of research, there have been a lot of clues that this building has not been used as a gladiator barracks. And not least among these is the fact that the building is elegantly constructed and decorated, including the remnants of fine wall paintings, even in the latrine.
Now Eric's turning to new technology to help in his search for the truth about this building. He's using a handheld structure sensor. It's a versatile, portable piece of equipment to capture 3D details of the site.
The personal scanner for us as archaeologists is a really amazing opportunity. Whereas before, we could take photos, we could make a sketch, but we could never get a really detailed picture of something. Now, with just a few minutes of time, we can not only get the idea that we're interested in, but capture the whole reality around it. And that's revolutionary.
The structure sensor fires a beam of infrared light at the architecture.
It's actually capturing the space as I kind of paint along the wall visually. Now, not only is it capturing the geometry, it's also capturing the imagery. So while we're at the one hand getting the space, we're also getting a sense of the texture.
As Eric traces his tablet across the entire surface of the building, he gets a complete picture, not just of what he can see, but also what he can't.
What we're seeing here is this hole here in the wall, which actually is a major sewer of the city. And you begin to see the scanner moving down the corridor, picking up more and more of the space.
The scanner plots the line of the sewer, giving Eric vital information about how the infrastructure here has been built. But crucially, without having to excavate.
There it is. Let me fill the holes. It's going to use the processor of the tablet to find any gaps that I've missed that are just small or were little areas that were behind a rock. And now I can zoom around in the space of this wall and show you the X-ray view. And now we're back behind the wall, and that is where that sewer is, right here.
The structure scanner is documenting how the sewer changes its path in order to accommodate the latrine. The addition of this new room and its position within the building helps Eric prove his theory that this was not meant for gladiators. Coupled with the quality of the decoration discovered previously, Eric believes this place was simply too elaborate for a group of fighters.
Pompeians went to a lot of trouble to renovate this building in a grand style in the years just before the eruption. The addition of a latrine, together with the rest of the architecture, makes it clear that this was going to be a public space, likely a market building.
It's not only mysteries of Pompeii's buildings that are being solved. Another team is battling to unlock the secrets of a forgotten library of ancient scrolls.
This is really exciting because we are using 21st century technology to read these 2,000 years old texts and trying to virtually unroll it.
Experts now wonder, could long-lost works of ancient literature be hidden under these charred remains? Pompeii was one of the first ancient cities to be uncovered at the dawn of archaeology. But despite over 250 years of traditional digging with spades and shovels, there is much that these ruins keep secret. Now, some scientists are turning to the very latest state-of-the-art technology to help solve age-old mysteries. Some that have been right in front of our eyes for centuries. Just 20 miles to the west of Pompeii lies its sister city, Herculaneum. It too was buried in ash in the eruption of Vesuvius. Scores of people who failed to heed the warning signs died here. Centuries later, in the mid-1700s, treasure hunters came across an extraordinary find. What looked like odd lumps of charcoal and burnt logs turned out to be scrolls of papyrus. Archaeologists realized they'd discovered a vast library of documents, one of the greatest ever found in Italy. Scholars hoped these may be lost classics, but these relics simply crumbled at the slightest touch. Now, for the first time, cutting-edge technology may finally help unravel their secrets.
This in my hands is 15 meters long, but it's only 5 centimeters now. So we have to virtually unroll it to see the letters inside.
In Grenoble, France, in the shadow of the Alps, Dr. Emmanuel Brunn has been given exclusive access to the scrolls. They're using a machine called a synchrotron to attempt to see what's hidden within.
There are two challenges. One is to get the best images here at the synchrotron, and the other is the data analysis, try to really unroll it virtually. And that is difficult because we are dealing with huge amount of data.
During a massive surge from the eruption, the delicate papyrus carbonized so quickly that the scientists believed the inscriptions inside were effectively sealed in. To find out, the synchrotron produces X-rays that bombard the scrolls at close to the speed of light. When they pass through the papyrus and detect sections that contain ink, they're deflected and leave an image that the scientists can read. Although state-of-the-art technology, it is still an incredibly slow process. The ink used in antiquity was made from smoke residue. In density, it's almost identical to the carbonized papyrus itself. But the hope now is that the synchrotron will be able to distinguish between the two.
We have X-rays that are passing through the sample, and we can have, like that, cross-section of 1/10 of millimeter. And thanks to the deviation of the light, we can make the difference between the carbonized papyrus and the carbon-based ink.
Tantalizingly, some intriguing words and phrases are starting to be revealed.
So for the moment, we have isolated two words, which are, the English translation is "they would fall" and "they would say." That's the two words that for the moment has been isolated. Now we can try and see inside, and maybe we can discover new texts that have been lost 2,000 years ago.
Although a painstaking task, once decoded, what will the scrolls reveal? Could they be the diaries of someone writing down their thoughts as the mountain above started to rumble?
The ambition is for medium term, let's say 5 to 10 years. We think that we might unroll what is possible to unroll and then to isolate the different layers that are glued together and see what is inside the scrolls.
As the search continues to unravel lost secrets from these ancient scrolls, scientific research is being carried out in another part of France to unlock the mysteries of a favorite Roman pastime: drinking wine. Cedric Durand runs a vineyard in Provence, France. He uses ancient texts and images to attempt to recreate the wines that would have been served in the bars of Pompeii around the time Mount Vesuvius erupted.
We know in the text that there were a lot of different wines. Wine for the common people to drink every day in the corner of your house in town or during your hard work.
And when it came to wine with your evening meal, Cedric discovered that the Pompeians had a very different approach to the way we behave today.
Wine were drunk between the meals, not with the meals. So most of the time they don't search to associate, as we do now, wine with one meal.
The process Cedric and his team used to make the wine is the same as it would have been in ancient times. From mosaics, frescoes, and texts, they've been able to accurately reconstruct a Pompeian wine press. It also revealed something unusual about the Romans' taste in wine.
As you can see, this press and this cellar is widely open to air, to oxygen. And the Romans, they used to like this kind of taste, oxidation. They liked it. They liked the taste of an old wine. You say, okay, sometimes you open a bottle and you say, it's okay, it's too late for this wine. Okay, the Roman would have said, oh, great.
Not all drinking was done at home in Pompeii. The city had many street corner bars. Archaeologist Dr. Sophie Hay spent many years excavating the Bar of Amarantus in the south of the city.
Well, this is a typical Roman bar, a nice marble top. We have a little display cabinet here for the glasses and the wine that he would be selling. The bar culture, I think, would have been very lively, more of a nighttime activity. So when people knock off work, around here, it's an area full of artisans. So we have painters, we have lamp makers, and I think they came in the evening to unwind, gamble perhaps. We find dice in bars, so we know that they were playing games.
Gambling was illegal in Pompeii, but the law wasn't strictly enforced.
We know that even children gambled using nuts, and upper-class Romans gambled sometimes large amounts of money. And so gambling was a regular part of life. And in taverns, it would be gambling mainly on dice games, for instance, or board games.
The ancient city of Pompeii, buried by Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD, is once again under threat. Now, scientists are poring over Pompeii to document every inch of the site, to create something never attempted before, a complete 3D model. As they do, surprising clues to the city's forgotten past are emerging. Professor Eric Paler is documenting the city's street network. Today, he's working on the Via Consolare, which was in direct line of the volcano's path and buried deep in ash. Now unearthed, it's revealing surprising details of how this city was organized.
The streets are a multi-purpose form of infrastructure. They both provide a hard surface for the carts to roll along, they provide sidewalks for the pedestrians to move in, and then they create kind of a box-like shape because the water from all the roofs in the city will spill out through the houses, pass into the street, and then wash out as kind of a great storm drain for the city.
Looking closely at the architecture and layout of these drains, Eric has confirmed what the huge stones across the roads were actually for. They kept your feet and toga from getting covered in the muck and grime flowing through the streets.
It's so that at each intersection and at important crossing points in the city, you can get from one point to another without having to dip down into the street. There might be lots of water there could be manure and other things.
Another image that hits all visitors to Pompeii are the deep wheel ruts embedded in the streets of the city. But Eric's detailed analysis of the roads here has provided him with other clues that he believes have long gone unnoticed.
We can see at this intersection how traffic would have moved through Pompeii. On the right-hand side, this corner is angled outward to move traffic and let it more easily turn to the right. The other side, this doesn't have the same angle, so it's not expecting that traffic to do that. We look at this part of the stepping stone, we can see where the cartwheel actually shaved off part of the stone. But it gets much more interesting when we see this side, because not only can we see that the carts are interacting with it, kind of great iron wheel turning down like this, making contact with the stone, and then staying in contact, spreading this pattern across the face of the stone. This can only occur when the cartwheel is turning down like this, which means the cart has to be going in this direction and turning off that way.
This got Eric thinking. Even though these streets are over 2,000 years old, is there some hidden pattern here that might reveal a traffic system that has so far escaped detection?
There's 500 places where you can tell by looking carefully at the way the cart wheels would interact with the stones that a cart was moving in a particular direction to create that actual pattern of wear.
He then crisscrossed the entire city, confirming his findings on his tablet. Slowly, he began to notice a pattern emerging.
You see here, we've got a northbound and a southbound right next to each other.
By recording these tiny details on his tablet, Eric created a digital record of all Pompeii's street movements. And it revealed something groundbreaking.
The entire city had a form of traffic control that had escaped our detection for that whole time. The first time I took all the data and then pushed the button, out came the first map of the traffic system of Pompeii that anyone had ever seen.
What Eric has discovered is a familiar system of one-way streets.
Ancient cities like Pompeii are organized in many ways a lot like modern cities today, like Manhattan with a grid system. The traffic that moves through modern New York and ancient Pompeii had to face the same kinds of intersections, square intersections that force traffic into certain patterns and not into others.
And Pompeii certainly needed organized streets. Although only 12,000 people lived here, thousands more traveled into the city as it was home to one of the most important buildings in Pompeii, the massive amphitheater. The amphitheater dominates the eastern edge of the city. It's the most imposing structure left standing in Pompeii.
The amphitheater in Pompeii is the oldest one that we know of. So the amphitheater, which means a double theater, was an invention in Italy. So the Greeks already had theaters with seating in 180 degrees. The idea of the amphitheater or arena was 360-degree seating. And so from anywhere in the stands, you could watch the spectacle in the middle of the arena. Arena itself simply means sand, because sand would be put in the center to absorb all the blood and so on from the spectacles.
And the current work of the scientists here means that a complete picture of this massive structure can now be seen.
Well, the amphitheater here compares to all of the amphitheaters in Italy in that it's the first stone-built structure of its kind in all of Italy. As a 20,000-seat amphitheater, it certainly was more than what was necessary for one single town, but it's certainly serving the rest of the regions.
As a modern generation of experts continue to fan out and document this site, long unnoticed details are coming to light.
It was a long day, and they had all sorts of contests throughout the day. In the summer, it would be hot, but they allowed for that by having awnings that would have been hauled out on pulley systems to cover all of the crowd to keep them protected from the sun.
And the varying size and shape of the seats reveal there was a strict hierarchy for those who came to watch.
Women and slaves tended to sit further back up into the stadium, so it was very tiered depending on one's class and one's gender. The elites and the town leaders down towards the front.
But all these groups shared one thing in common: their love of the gladiator games. They were the equivalent of the major sporting events that we attend today. Historians now understand that gladiatorial combat was more complicated than simply throwing victims to the lions. Many of the men involved were very much the sports heroes of their day. Archaeologists have discovered evidence of these celebrities still exists on the walls of Pompeii. Hidden away not far from the amphitheater is this tiny 2,000-year-old graffiti. Experts believe it's a drawing of a gladiator known as a retiarius. He wore a guard on one arm. Part of his armor was a plate tied to his left shoulder to help protect his head. He fought with a net and a trident. As other graffiti shows, the sworn enemy of the retiarius was the Murmillo. He had a guard on one arm and a single leg guard, his face hidden behind a full cover helmet. He fought with a short sword and a large shield. Uncovering 2,000-year-old etchings at Pompeii has provided vital insight into what went on here during Roman times. But state-of-the-art scientific technology is helping throw new light on the ancient world of Pompeii. So far, scientists have been able to put a face on some of the victims and brought crumbling streets back to life. But the very walls of this city are now at serious risk of being lost forever.
These walls have experienced so much turmoil and upheaval from being built and experiencing earthquakes and the volcanic eruption that destroyed it, right through to having been exposed and then systematically neglected and trampled over by tourists over the past 200 years. Indeed, most of the walls that we walk through here have been exposed longer in the modern period than they ever existed in antiquity.
And now, many of the precious frescoes and wall paintings are deteriorating rapidly. Grime from modern pollution has coated them in film. And future tremors could wipe these fragile images away for good.
The importance of the frescoes is extraordinary. They allow us to reconnect with the people who once lived in these very homes.
That's one of the most important types of evidence we have from Pompeii is wall paintings. So while wall paintings have survived in other places, we just don't have the amount that there is in Pompeii, which reflect the artistic interests of people and show scenes of mythology and so on, but more crucially for us, precisely reflect the kind of things that occurred in houses and bars and shops and so on.
Early efforts to preserve them with substances like wax and oil did more harm than good. It actually sealed in moisture, which over time has damaged these precious decorations. To attempt to save them, scientists are turning to laser technology.
The laser is one of the most powerful. It has a wavelength of 1064 nanometers, so it's in the near-infrared range of the spectrum, so it's not visible to the eye. And it has a maximum energy of 900 millijoules and a very short pulse. So it's a very, very powerful laser, and we have to calibrate it and to choose the minimum and the maximum energy for it to work properly and safely.
And restorers are developing relatively simple techniques to improve the process.
Sometimes it is very useful to use water to wet the surface. This way the colors become brighter and the removal is easier. And then the water also cools down the surface, and when the laser heats up the water, this helps the ejection of the unwanted material.
Pompeii is one of only a handful of sources of Roman wall decorations on Earth. They display astonishing depictions of everyday life and are a wealth of vital information for historians.
Thanks to this 21st century technology, we also can shed some light on the habits of the Roman people and to see how they were dressed, how their hairstyle was. And so it also helps to have new knowledge about the history of these people and of our country.
It's a technique that has now brought Pompeii's stunning Villa of the Mysteries back to its original glory.
The faces are now shining as bright as when they were first painted.
And as more and more frescoes are revealed, we learn more about what the interiors of the homes of Pompeii looked like. But scientists aren't just concentrating on what's above ground. They're also looking for clues underground. Pompeii had a sophisticated plumbing and water system, There are over 40 fountains in the city, and many of the grand houses had running water. But Pompeii's gutters and drains can also answer questions about the citizens' lifestyles and what they consumed. It may not be the most glamorous investigation at Pompeii, but if someone doesn't do it now, a wealth of information may be lost forever.
The latrine deposits in Pompeii are great assemblages because people maybe indiscriminately throw things down in the latrines, or as it's a fast way to dispose of some rubbish that I may have been working on in the kitchen next door.
McKinnon has sifted through tons of ancient garbage looking for clues, but the most revealing might come from animal bones. What he's discovering paints a picture of the final meals of many of Pompeii's doomed citizens.
There's lots of information that registers on the bones themselves that tell us about the preparation process and the cooking process.
Today, he's investigating a set of remains found in a latrine in the house of Marcus Lucretius, a once lavish house in the center of Pompeii. The remains form the top layer of the latrine, so in terms of chronology, this waste is from a time not long before the eruption of Mount Vesuvius.
It has a big concentration of materials that look like it came from a wealthy feast. It has songbird remains, which are a delicacy in antiquity. Lots of fish, sea urchins, and shellfish, so it's special.
The latrine also contains the bones of pigs, a widespread commodity in antiquity. But by analyzing the state of their teeth, McKinnon can deduce the age of these animals, and he spots something startling.
This particular assemblage has the highest concentration of young pigs from Pompeii. Younger pigs under 2-3 months of age would be a delicacy in Pompeii. The wealthier people were the ones who had the resources to access them.
This paints a vivid picture of a banquet enjoyed by some of the richest people in town.
So it's a chance to impress one's friends, be the talk of the town.
As a clearer picture of the lifestyles of the Pompeians emerges, it's the future of the city that is fast becoming the main focus. The volcano Mount Vesuvius looms large over the town of Pompeii, an ever-present threat waiting to erupt all over again. And as scientists and archaeologists race against the clock to create a complete 3D model of Pompeii, they're now aware of a new danger: potentially catastrophic landslides within the city. Scientists believe that as the rain flows down from Vesuvius, it's starting to move the huge mounds of earth in the unexcavated areas of the site, and will collapse the buildings and monuments that they're now mapping. In a bid to find out if their worst fears might be realized, they're now looking to the heavens. We started working with the Italian Space Agency. Their Cosmo SkyMed satellite allows us to see every little movement of the ground in the unexcavated areas, and of the buildings and walls, which often fall underneath the heavy rains. This system is accompanied by wireless sensors on the ground, which send us a warning for every little movement of the buildings and of the earth around them. The satellite keeps track of the signals from the wireless transmitters, making a recording every few minutes so that over time scientists will be able to detect the slightest movement of the buildings and of the ground they stand on. Pompeii is the biggest archaeological site where they are experimenting with these different technologies. We still don't know what the result will be, but it will enhance our knowledge, which will help us analyze all the data and then use it for the purposes of preservation. But for the scientists working at Pompeii, rainfall may be the least of their worries. The reason this city was stopped in its tracks was the catastrophic eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. That all started with innocent wisps of smoke appearing from the volcano. And now, the indications are that Mount Vesuvius may very well be due to make its presence felt once more.
Because there is the possibility that it will be at least of a modest explosive size, it may produce small pyroclastic surges which will affect most of the mountain. And consequently, the current emergency plan is that as soon as there's signs of reawakening the volcano, the first step is to evacuate 600,000 people.
As well as the satellites keeping a close eye on minute movements of the landscape, a nearby monitoring station in Naples is keeping watch 24/7 on the activity of Vesuvius.
The volcano is permanently monitored with a network of seismometers and ground deformation stations. And the signals from these instruments are sent directly to the Vesuvius Observatory. So if you go and visit it, you will see banks of screens that's showing changes in seismicity and movements of the ground minute by minute.
The information they're studying here keeps them updated about every minor movement in the Earth around the volcano, and acts as an early warning system for future eruptions.
Should there be any evidence that the eruption could be of a size of the Pompeii eruption, then consideration would also have to be given to the potential threat to Naples itself.
Cutting-edge science, along with physical preservation, have deepened our understanding of this fascinating ruin.
What we see here is a city that is crumbling, that is on its last legs, but also an effort to try to save it for the future.
If we lose the city of Pompeii to a volcanic eruption or to some other form of devastation, what we lose is the greatest single place to walk into the past and to exercise one of those great things that technology can't yet do, maybe hopefully never will be able to do, which is to imagine, to reconstruct in our mind from the information in front of us and to see a past that isn't actually there, but you can feel and know from inside your mind.
Preserving this site is the biggest fight, the biggest challenge for everyone here, technicians, scientists, archaeologists, in Pompeii.
All the new technologies that are being employed here and the new ways of documenting this fascinating city will soon provide us with an incredibly detailed virtual view of Pompeii. A world that neither Mount Vesuvius, nor wind or rain will ever be able to destroy. A perfect copy of an ancient city that science hopes will forever stand the test of time.